Hey guys, and welcome into a new video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're not going to have any face cam on here, so apologies if you guys were expecting to see my face today. But what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be going over what a Dynasty League kind of is. I'm going to go over the settings that my league personally uses, and I'm also going to go through some of the teams on here that are going to show you different ways you can kind of build a team. But first of all, this is going to be on the Sleeper app. If you guys haven't used Sleeper, I'm not sponsored or anything by them, but I really do like their format here. They're very good with mock drafts. If you do like doing mock drafts, you go ahead and download their app on the App Store, and it's very good to do mock drafts for. But also, I have our Dynasty League on here, and I think it's a very good spot. So, a lot of different things that Sleeper does that I personally will condone that is pretty cool is you can add nicknames to your players. So, MVP for Lamar Jackson. I put OBJ for for Odell. I don't know why I said Danny. I do have Daniel Jones down here. He's Danny Dimes. Devontae Parker, I put the letter A from the Stephon Gilmore Instagram thing, which was kind of fun when he was beefing with Michael Thomas. But yeah, so anyway, it's a pretty good format. I like what they do here, so shout out to the Sleeper app for being there. But I'm going to go over and I'm going to click Edit League, and we're just going to kind of go over what we have. So my league has been called the Sanchez. We've had this league going since, God, probably my freshman year of high school. So what was that, like 6 or 7 years? This Dynasty League is fairly new, though, but Sanchez has been in a league for a while. But how we have it at 10 teams. You can go up to 32, as low as 4 here. The waiver types, we have it on Fab Dollars. Now, what Fab Dollars are is you have a salary cap, which is $200, to where if a free agent is on waivers, you have to bid with money, with the $200 that you have. You don't know what the other players are bidding, so if you want a guy, let's say, Jarrett Stidham's on free agency and he has a very good week, you want to put in $30 for him. Well, if someone puts in 31, then they're going to get Jarrett Stidham and you're not. You'll get your money back, but you will not win the bid. But you also don't know what other people are bidding. So if you really want a player, you're going to have to overpay. If you are thinking no one else is going to bid on them, you can bet pretty low and do that. So that's a very good way of doing it. I think it's better than waivers and reverse standings for waivers. I think it creates a more fair balance. Waivers are kind of a tricky thing to kind of get around, so definitely want to look into Fab Dollars if your league hasn't done it yet. But then there's different settings you can do here, all just kind of depending on how trades and everything are going to work, how the playoffs are going to work. We start them in week 14, and it's going to be 1 week playoffs with 6 teams, so 14, 15, and then the playoffs end in week 16. And then, of course, we do 1 week here. I like 2 weeks per round, but it's hard to do that with a bigger league. You'd probably have to do 4 teams and start in week 13, and that's just a little bit harder. And then I always do a consolation bracket. The toilet bowl is basically you play, and if you win, then you don't have to play anymore. But I like the consolation bracket because then you're fighting to be the winner for it. And in our league, you get punished if you're the last team. So if you lose the consolation bracket, it's not who has the worst record, but if you lose the consolation bracket, you are done. So injured reserve. Now this is kind of a spot where a lot of leagues are different. I like injured reserve slots. I always put 1 slot for injured reserves in our leagues. And the reason why I do this is because a lot of times, man, you can't control some of these things. Last year when I had Devontae Adams, I wasn't able to put him on injured reserve because he wasn't actually injured. But, you think back to 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't have an injured reserve slot for David Johnson. I just had to frankly right out cut him, and it doesn't work a lot of times for these guys. Like, a lot of people had AJ Green on their injured reserve because then it's like, okay, he's not taking up a roster spot. But later on in the year, if he does come back, you can cut somebody and put him back on your roster. I think it's very good because of those players who, they might come back in about 8 or 10 weeks, but you're going to need somebody to fill it. So instead of cutting them and losing out on that player that you probably spent draft capital on, you're able to use the injured reserve slot to put them in there. I allow for suspended players and did not report players and just players that are not available to be put on the IR because, those are an IR, even though it's called injured reserve, I have it basically as a cannot play kind of position, so that's what we have allowed there. This is obviously a Dynasty League, and we have 5-round drafts for after. We might check that out, and Taxi Squad. Now, if you guys are new to Dynasty, which I'm guessing a lot of people watching this are, Dynasty is a very fun way of playing. You have your team for the remainder of the league, which is hopefully going to be a long time, decades even. So it's a very, very fun thing to do. But what a Taxi Squad slot is kind of like an injured reserve to where your player can't play. He's not a part of your roster. But the cool thing about it, and I'll throw it down here, is that for us, you have 1 year of this player that is on the Taxi Squad, and it has to be before the regular season. So for me, I put Eno Benjamin on my Taxi Squad. Now, what that means is he cannot be on my team at all this year. So if Eno Benjamin becomes a starting running back in week 2, and he's the starting running back for the rest of the season, he's putting up big numbers, I can't even touch him. He can't play for me because he's on my Taxi Squad. But what it does is it basically redshirts this rookie. It's only for rookies. it redshirts the rookies for a year to where you can't play them at all, but after a year they're going to be on your roster. So it kind of gives you that space to, for a guy like me, like with Benjamin, I think that maybe next year he'll have a role in that Cardinals offense, but for this year I'm pretty sure he's not going to have a role, so I'm going to put him on my taxi squad and see where he's at next year. But yeah, that is pretty much all there for the actual league settings. We'll go over to the roster settings here. Now, for a Dynasty League, what you're going to want to do, in my personal opinion, the best way to do it is have defensive positions. Now, I'll get to those in just a moment, but how I always run my leagues is 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, and 2 flexes, and then a kicker. We'll get into the defense in a second, but the reason I do 3 receivers and 2 flexes is there's just so much wide receiver talent. I mean, in mock drafts I was doing, which is we have a 25-round draft with 10 teams, players like Julian Edelman weren't getting selected. Guys who are very, very good. It's just they're old. Jared Goff's a free agent right now. Ben Roethlisberger's a free agent right now. There's a lot of spots to fill, and a lot of those happen to do with the wide receiver position because wide receiver depth is so huge. A lot of teams use 3 to 4 receivers per game, so it's a very big spot. That's why I like the 3 receivers and the 2 flexes, and it's a PPR league. Defensive wise, I think the best to start off Dynasty is to do individual positions such as defensive line, linebacker, DB, because if you're not doing actual positions, pretty much everyone's just going to pick linebackers, and it's going to be kind of a weird spot to be in. This kind of forces you to have one of each position, kind of creates a little bit more of a dynamic, kind of makes you think of who's going to be better than, etc. So that's something you definitely want to look at. And then we have, I think, 12 or 13 bench slots, just because it's such a deep league. We need a lot of players and a lot of rosters for that. Now, here, for scoring, I have passing touchdowns at 6 points. A lot of people do 4 points. I think it's just weird. If a touchdown is thrown, it counts for 6 points. It doesn't count for 4 points, so I always do that. Pretty much other than that, everything else is pretty much standard. Half a point, PPR, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I'm not really going to go too deep in the points, but I prefer doing 6-point touchdowns for quarterbacks. You can do divisions here. I personally don't have divisions on right now because we have 10 teams. 2 divisions would just be kind of weird, but we could do it. I just think it's, I don't know, I don't want to do it yet. I might do it, but it's not really much of a point for divisions. It's pretty much just going to be based on who's going to win the division. The 2 division winners, I think, go into the playoffs, and then the next 2 teams or the next 4 teams go in after that. But that's pretty much how that is. And after that, everything else is pretty much standard stuff. So that's kind of how I set up the Dynasty League. Let me know what you guys do for your leagues, or maybe if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll be able to answer those as quick as possible. I think that if you are new to Dynasty, you might want to go and just get as many friends as you can, because the thing is about Dynasty is that even if you only have 6 friends, you could start a Dynasty League, and it's going to be all right, but your teams are going to be pretty freaking stacked. And then if you try to grow your league maybe next year or a year after that, you try to grow it to 10 people, well, then, you have 6 teams that are pretty much stacked, and you're kind of letting the other teams pick from the scraps. It's going to be hard to do. I think if you're going to start a Dynasty League, you need to have a set amount of players. So, like, we have 10. We're happy with 10 right now. If we need to add 2 more, it'll suck for those 2 more teams, but it's able to slowly build up. So, I think it's definitely something you can look at. But I'll give you a couple showings of what we could do here with teams. I'm going to go here to the draft results, and it's going to pull up the page here from our actual draft board. Now, these are a bunch of different teams. Obviously, I'm here at pick 6, but this is kind of what Fantasy Dynasty League is going to look like. Now, there's some teams that have different strategies. I know my friend Zach here, he had a very different strategy than a lot of us had, where he's kind of taking a lot of risks on players and hoping for high upside. But looking just where the draft kind of lies, you can see a lot of red in these first few rounds, and that is obviously because of how much quarterbacks are going to be valued here. You see Michael Thomas falling all the way to 9. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you have to take into account here, and mostly the biggest thing you have to take into account is how is my team going to look in 2 years? Is it still going to be good? Is it going to be bad? And that's a lot of where you kind of go quarterback. I went, my friend Hunter here, you've seen him on the channel before, he went Mahomes with the first overall pick. Why? Obviously you can get Zeke or Saquon or McCaffrey or somebody instead, but you get Mahomes, you have a quarterback for eternity, basically. That's a guy that you're always going to have. With running backs, we don't know if they get paid. We don't know what their situations are going to be. It's a lot of different things. So quarterback is definitely something to look at. I ended up going Lamar, obviously, which I'm super excited to do because I've never been able to have a guy like Lamar Jackson or Mahomes on my team because I usually wait to the later rounds. But this is kind of what the draft will look like. Obviously, it is a very deep draft. It ends all the way down here in Whoa, I don't even know what this is. It's kind of cool. What is all this down here? Whatever it is, but this is kind of just where it is. And you know, there's draft pick trading in this. There's trading future draft picks as well. So as you can see here in the 5th round, I picked Stephon Diggs and GP Griffin Peters. You've seen him on the channel as well. He wanted Stephon Diggs, and I picked it right in front of him. So what he did, he said, "Hey, I'll give you this pick right here, and then in 2 rounds, in round 7, I'll give you that pick as well." So I ended up flipping Stephon Diggs for Calvin Ridley and Le'Veon Bell. Good haul in for me. I'm excited about that. So let's go over and let's just look at what my team is built like, and I'll kind of explain where I'm at with it. So starting off here, we have Lamar Jackson at quarterback. Pretty simple. He's going to be a beast. He's going to be a beast for a long time. He's only been in the league for 2 years. He's got a long playing career ahead of him. Even if I only get, 7 years, maybe he has a Cam Newton career. In like 7 years, he's not really as Lamar Jackson type as he is now. Well, there's other guys that I have, and there's rookie drafts that I'm going to be able to replace him in. But for right now, I have one of the best, if not the best quarterback for fantasy purposes on my team, which I love. The running back position, a little bit harder than other spots just because of where I was falling in the draft. I got Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette here, and I really like this combo because they're a little bit risky, but there should be high rewards, at least for this season. Leonard Fournette, if he goes somewhere else, I think they'll pay him. I think he's a solid running back. He'll be able to do well as much as he can. Aaron Jones as well. I think that his talent will just outweigh the A.J. Dillon selection as well as Jamal Williams behind him because I think his talent just overweighs those two. But then we go to the receiver spot. I loved what I got at receiver here. So I took Lamar Jackson at the 1-6. When the 2nd round came back around, I saw DeAndre Hopkins on the board, and I was not passing him up for anything. So I went ahead, got DeAndre Hopkins. Usually I'm a big running back guy early, but I didn't even get a running back until I think it was round 4, right? Round 4, yeah, when I got Aaron Jones. So I ended up getting DeAndre Hopkins. The board came back around to me. Odell was still on the board. I'm like, hey, Odell still in his mid-20s, a little bit going towards his older 20s, but I think the talent's there. Even if he doesn't do well in Cleveland, I think he'll go somewhere else. This is a guy who I want on my team for the long haul. So I have Odell as well. And then Devontae Parker just got a brand new deal with Miami. He's there to stay. The team's looking a lot better. I think that's a good situation for Parker to be in. And these guys are all in good situations right now. So, like I said, they're all contractually bound with whatever team they're at. Arizona's got him for a few years. Cleveland's got Odell for a few years. Parker's got him for a few years. I'm excited to see where I'm at with these guys because I know my wide receiver position is sound asleep with these 3. And then I go on and I get Calvin Ridley, the 1st-round pick, who's I'm imagining getting an extension probably this year. Had a very good end of the year last year. I think he was like wide receiver 8 the last 8 weeks. So super big haul there. So I also had Zach Ertz at tight end. I'm not exactly sure where I ended up taking him. I ended up taking him in the 7th round. I started to see, it was Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, and Darren Waller all go off the board really quick, and then Hunter Henry right before me. So I said, look, I cannot wait to get a tight end. I ended up getting Zach Ertz. And we see T.J. Hawkinson and Austin Hooper and Will Disley as well go later. So, I mean, I could have waited, maybe got like a Noah Fant or a Gronk or somebody like that, but getting a guy like Ertz, I have a good couple years left of Ertz, and I can go on from there and build my team later on with draft picks or, young trades to get a younger tight end. Maybe that does well. But again, I also have Le'Veon Bell from that Stephon Diggs trade. What I got for Le'Veon Bell, I mean, I was thinking about taking Calvin Ridley at my pick anyway, but when I took Diggs and then that trade came up, I basically got Le'Veon for free, and that was a huge haul. Older in age, but this is a guy who's going to produce at least solid numbers for me, and with these running backs, I'm never really going to have to switch them out. That's very good for me. Michael Badgley, one of my favorite kickers. He always does well for me. Defensively, I have Calais Campbell, who is old. I'm probably going to have to replace him. I'll have to look towards the free agency market to see where D linemen are. Maybe I'll pick somebody up before the season starts. Darius Leonard was a very high pick for me. He might have been the first linebacker. No, Joe Scobert went right before him, but as soon as I saw Scobert go, I was like, all right, there was nobody else there that I really liked. James White was the next running back off the board. Receiver-wise, A.J. Green, Brandon Cooks, there wasn't really anybody I was looking at where I'm like, dang, I need this guy. So I ended up taking Darius Leonard, and I can't wait to see that because linebackers are the money spot. They can intercept, they can sack, they can get tackles, they can get pass deflections, they can get whatever you want that will get you points. So I love the Darius Leonard pick. And then I ended up taking Jabril Peppers. He did a very, very good job for the Giants before his injury last year. And when you look at one thing that I love about him is this right here, linebacker / DB. You can play him at either thing. So if Darius Leonard's on a bye week, which is in week 6, I can go ahead and move Jabril Peppers up to linebacker if I want. Get another DB to fill that spot if I feel, or I can switch it around. I can still keep a linebacker there. So I like the versatility there. Then we go over to the bench, and you're going to see a pretty common theme here. Is I have Daniel Jones as my backup quarterback. Now, I was not waiting too much longer for him. I ended up taking him here in round 11, because I knew that there was going to be some teams, Griffin right after me is a big Daniel Jones fan as well. I knew that he wouldn't last longer. I needed somebody to back him up because I think Daniel Jones is going to take that next step this year, and to have him with Lamar Jackson, especially during the bye weeks, if anything, I'll be able to play Daniel Jones if the matchup's right or if Lamar's shaken up or something. That's a great quarterback, a young quarterback as well, who's going to be able to carry my team 4 years as well with Lamar Jackson. Whatever injuries happen, whatever, I'm comfortable with both of these guys being my starter. Then we see here, these 5 running backs here, right? 5 running backs. There's one thing they have all in common. They are the number 2 in a good situation. Now, let me explain. Latavius Murray, we saw last year when when Alvin Kamara went out, he was a beast. He still got a lot of points for people. So I love the fact that I can have him as a handcuff, because if Kamara goes out, I can either A, play him, or I can sell him to the Kamara owner or somebody else that wants a starting running back for a good price, maybe even a first rounder if somebody's desperate enough. Same with Kareem Hunt. If some reason Chubb goes out, Kareem Hunt, we know the versatility that he has, and he's already going to be in this offense in the pass game. On top of that, if none of those factors happen, Kareem Hunt's going to be getting a nice contract next season because he's only on a tag right now. So I can't wait to see what happens there. Rashad Penny as well, young guy, first-round pick. Seattle likes playing him, so I like having him because if Chris Carson goes down, which has happened a lot before, I know they just signed Carlos Hyde, but they like using the running game with Penny. Penny was getting a lot more touches towards the end of the year last year, so he's young, he's talented. I think that worst comes to worst, he becomes a solid bench guy throughout the next couple of seasons, and then I can replace him with somebody coming in like an ETN or a Najee Harris or Chuba Hubbard or somebody like that. Philip Lindsay, the talent's there. He's an absolute beast. I ended up getting Lindsay in, where was it? Pretty late, yeah, 15th round, right behind Sony Michel, right in front of Darrell Henderson, Jordan Howard, and Damian Williams. So I love the Lindsay pick. I think he's a very talented player. I can't wait to see what he can do this year with Melvin Gordon. But if Melvin Gordon does happen to go out with an injury, we already know the Broncos trust Philip Lindsay to carry that load. And then Tony Pollard, one of my favorite handcuffs this year, because if the Zeke owner doesn't get Tony Pollard and something happens to Zeke, Tony Pollard is a hot commodity because that offensive line is absolutely insane. We know how much the run game is used in Dallas. We don't obviously know what it's going to be like with Mike McCarthy there, but Tony Pollard will be somebody who will get some points even with Zeke out there. But if something were to happen to Zeke at any point in this career, even though Zeke just got a big payday, Tony Pollard's going to scoop up those snaps, and they're not going to run too much less running plays than they would with Zeke, because I think they trust Tony Pollard a little bit. So I'm excited about that one as well. Then we have receivers here, some backup guys that I have. Mike Williams, where you hope he blossoms into what he was drafted as. So I have him for that versatile factor. Anthony Miller, young guy who maybe will get some more targets with Foles. Preston Williams had a very good season, unfortunately towards ACL, so we'll see how he bounces back. This is a guy who, if he's not playing well, I can cut him, but he was looking like a good weapon last year. Darius Slayton, we all know how great of a rookie year Darius Slayton has. So to have him with Daniel Jones for the long haul, both very young players, both have a great connection. I think it's very good to have. Jalen Reagor, obviously the first-round pick for the Eagles. Super, super solid to have him because we know that them drafting him in the first round means he'll be trusted. So even if it's not this year, maybe next year or a year after that, he's a solid player that can start on my team. And then in the last round, I ended up taking Blake Jarwin just due to the fact where, or it wasn't the last round, I don't think. It was second to last round. But just to the fact of where I needed somebody that I knew can come in as a tight end if Ertz is down. And I know that Blake Jarwin's going to be starting for Dallas. I think that he has tremendous upside because of the targets he's going to be getting. Because of how versatile this offense is, he's going to be used a lot more, I think. So I like the Jarwin pick here as well. I don't have anyone on the IR, and then, of course, I told you about the Benjamin pick back then. So now, I mean, people are saying he might even have the number 2 spot on the depth chart. And he's only 21 years old, so I can hold on to him for this year, put him on my bench next year, and maybe, if not next year, the year after that, he's able to at least get some sort of role. And then we have all our draft picks here, which we're able to trade for the next 3 years, 5 picks in each round, or for the next 3 years. So that's how I ran my team. Solid build. I built it to where it's very much a win now team, but yet it still has enough youth to where it won't be hurt too much, Obviously, we have DeAndre Hopkins, Odell, who are getting to their 30s almost. We have, Le'Veon Bell, who's already at the 30 mark almost as well. Ertz, who's up there in age as well. But then we have young guys, obviously with Clay Campbell, but then we have young guys like Darius Leonard, who's going to hold us for a while. Calvin Ridley, who, when one of these guys is digressing, we're going to have Calvin Ridley to throw right back up there. Devontae Parker's pretty young. These guys are also young, and we have all these draft picks, and we have all these young guys, a lot of differences. The best thing you want to do is you definitely want to have a team that's capable of making the playoffs every year, but you still want to have some youth on your team to where if something were to happen to your starters, they can still play, they can still do good, but you're still able to get that youth and progression from them. Like, if something were to happen to Odell or Ridley or somebody this year, I know that I have Mike Williams, Anthony Miller, Darius Slayton, Jalen. I know these guys can fill in for that injured spot whenever it is necessary. So I like what I did here. This is a good spot to be in. Obviously, it says I have a 98% chance of winning week 1, and that's with Jabril Peppers only projected 0 points right now. So definitely something to look at. Let's go look at one more team as well, and I think it's going to be Hunter Whittles here. You've seen Hunter on the channel here, so let's click on his team. I mean, we're going to see it here. Let's see. How do we go to actually his team if we can? Well, let's just go to propose trades. Let's act like we're going to propose a trade to him. So we're going to see his team here. He has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Once again, we talked about it. First overall pick. That's something good to do. Now, the thing that I thought was interesting with Hunter is Hunter built a team to win now. He did not build a team that's going to be progressing into a better team in 4 years, 2 years even. It's going to be a team that his window is these next 2 years, and then he'll address the youth factor after. But it's a very scary team at this moment in time. You look at what Patrick Mahomes has at quarterback, averaging, he's projected 28 points. He's the future of the league, so he has the youth for Patrick Mahomes there, which is very good. Then you go to the running backs. It's a lot of, Derrick Henry. Is he going to get paid this year? We don't know. He's almost like, I think he's 27 almost. So it's definitely a question mark, but you know what you're getting out of him. His production's amazing. Same with Austin Eckler. He got paid. They trust him, but is he going to be that lead back for a while? We don't know, but we know right now he's going to be a beast. Same with Julio. Age is not on his side, but he is still one of the best receivers. We just know that a lot of receivers after 30 years hit that wall and hit it hard. We saw it with Larry Fitzgerald, Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne, all these guys. We've seen it happen time and time again. Julio's a different animal, so we'll see what happens there. Mike Evans, we just don't know what's happening with Tampa Bay in the next few years. They got to pay Godwin. How long are they going to have Brady, etc. Jarvis, good PPR guy. A lot of very good pick here at wide receiver 3. Evan Ingram, he has injury concerns. We all know that. Can he stay healthy? Because if he is, he's a top 5 tight end. James Conner, once again, can he stay healthy? If he is, he's a good running back, but how healthy is he going to be? Gronk, what does he look like in an NFL uniform anymore? We've never seen him outside of New England. We haven't seen him in over a year, Defensively, Hunter's got a very young and solid core. Joey Bosa, Tremaine Adams, Jamal Adams. He won't have to change these guys for a long, long time, as well as Harrison Butker. It doesn't look like they're going to be getting rid of him at all. Then you go to the bench. This is where Hunter started to look and say, okay, let me get some youth on my side. And this is what you have to do. If you spend your draft capital getting players that are up in age but also very, very productive, you get some younger guys. So you got a Drew Lock because that's a very young quarterback that's going to be good. Duke Johnson's a good handcuff because David Johnson does get hurt a lot. So if Duke Johnson, they don't have Lamar Miller, they don't have Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson's that guy if David Johnson goes down. Chase Edmonds, if something happens to Kenyon Drake, maybe they flip over to Chase Edmonds, that's good. Montgomery, young guy in Chicago, can he lead them to be the lead back now? We'll see if that happens. John Brown, a lot of people forget how good John Brown is because they got Stephon Diggs. Same with Robbie Anderson. They're in weird situations where people kind of overlook them, but they still could be viable options. He also has Curtis Samuel. In case one of them is outperforming the other, he can let the other one go. D.D. Westbrook, we saw a lot of talent coming out of him last year. It was kind of spotty, but if he can hold on to it, it's very good. Michael Gallup, a lot of people forget how good Michael Gallup was last season. Even though they got CeeDee Lamb, Gallup should still get a lot of targets. And then he ends it off with 2 young guys here in Terrell Edmonds, the DB, and Devin Bush, the linebacker. Both young, both have a good amount of talent. I mean, Edmonds, I'm not as highly on in Pittsburgh, but Devin Bush definitely is an absolute beast. And then Andy Isabella, of course, second-round pick, picked him over DK Metcalf. This is a guy who they have to get involved with their offense this year. So you're able to see, this is a team where, hey, maybe you want to win right now. Maybe you want those bragging rights right now. This is a team where you would want to look at and say, hey, these are guys I want. You could even throw in, if you didn't want to go Mahomes, you could have even went for a Brady or a Drew Brees later on in the draft and made him your quarterback and had a younger guy. Like, if he had Drew Lock as his bench guy and took Brady or Brees later in the draft, he could have made Mahomes into a, Christian McCaffrey or Saquon or whatever it would be, to where he's still a beast team and he'd be able to win in this next 2 years most likely with a Brees or a Brady, and then he still has that youth to get from a Drew Lock. So definitely a very, very good team from Hunter as well. There's a lot of good teams in the drafts, and really there's no way that you can go wrong in a dynasty draft. If you want to draft young, great, because then you might not win this year, but you could be competing in a year or 2 years from now. That's why people like CeeDee Lamb, go so high. DeAndre Swift, different players like that. We see Clyde Edwards-Helaire here in the 3rd round. That's over guys like Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor's still there. That's a young guy as well. You scroll down a little bit more. Terry McLaurin's going over Stephon Diggs. Why? It's youth. DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins going over Fournette and Melvin Gordon and Chris Carson. These are guys where Yeah, it's not saying CeeDee Lamb is going to be a better player than Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs, and Calvin Ridley. It's just the upside of a CeeDee Lamb. That's really all it is. So I hope that this kind of helped you with a Dynasty League. If you guys did enjoy this kind of content, let me know about it. I can do more tips and tricks for fantasy football. I love everything about fantasy football. We've seen a lot of mock drafts on the channel. If you haven't, go check them out. They're definitely fun to watch. I have a couple. I have a Dynasty mock draft. I have a PPR mock draft. I have multiple I have me and my friends do a mock draft together. It's definitely been different things. So be sure to look at that. If you want more insight onto what my league is, please be sure to leave that in the comment section below. And I've already said this before in other videos, but I do want to get a subscriber league going later on down the line. We have over 700 subscribers here, so it shouldn't be too hard to get at least 10 or 12 people into a league. But I'd love to do a redraft league there and kind of see who can get bragging rights over that. But let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. Let me know if there's any other questions that you want me to answer. I can make videos on them, or I can just respond to them as quickly as possible in the comment section below. But let me know what you think of my team. Let me know what you think of Hunter's team. Let me know what you think about the draft in general. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like, as it does help me so much. If you didn't, just refresh the page, check it out again. Let me know what you think a second time. And without further ado, that is going to be for me. I'll see you guys in the next one.